We got a new wheel.
We did.
We actually got a new wheel. The brand new V13. And I think there's only there's one company out there we could thank for that. And this whole episode is just kind of thanks to these guys.
Yeah, shout out to Ride One.
Ride One Toronto.
Here in Toronto. Check them out, ride1.ca.
Yeah.
They hooked us up.
They lent us a wheel and they said, hey, if you guys are interested in doing the whole PV lane thing, and you wanna look at this wheel, it's just gonna be sitting here, so take it, ride it, use it, do what you want with it. So we said, yeah, let's do it. So you saw what's gonna be happening, you read the title, so here we are.
Yeah, so there was a pretty great Ride One hosted demo event a couple weeks back.
Yeah, and there was a great video that came out.
And they put out a pretty awesome video. You can go check that out as well on the Toronto E-Riders. And then we've had the V13 since then for a couple weeks now.
Yeah.
Between yourself and I, and it's pretty exciting. I can't lie.
Yeah, I have mixed reviews. I have mixed feelings, but it is just such a genuinely, it's a genius, great wheel. Like, it's just a great wheel. You can't talk too much smack about it because they've done a lot of what we've asked.
Yeah, they have. So there's some pretty awesome new features, I think, that maybe we can just highlight some of those.
Yeah, so let's go into some key features. We'll give our opinions. We actually met with a bunch of people, too, and we had a little bit of a meetup, and we got some other people's opinions. So, let's go through it. Key features. What do you want to point out probably first, Hansen, as someone who's a little more particular and looks at things a little more intensely than I say I would?
Well, I think just at a high level, just starting off with the size of the wheel is really important. Because, every EUC or gyro wheel.
Oh, here we go. Anyway, moving on.
Any wheel, e-wheel.
Yeah.
Or, one-wheel dirt bike has its own wheel size.
Okay.
So the V13 is a 22-inch diameter wheel. At least that's how they rate it. I don't know the exact rim size. Maybe it's an 18-inch.
Okay. It's in the room. I tried to look over, but it's hard to see. Yeah.
But they call it a 22-inch wheel. So it's similar to like the Monster V3.
Yeah, I feel like the rim is bigger than 18.
Yes. Yeah. It's definitely bigger than all the 18 to 20-inch wheels.
Yeah.
So it's got that new motor, 4,000 plus watts of
and
power.
I think it was Evie's.
Their teardown video.
That opened it up, and it was like, wow, it's
beefy.
It's beefy.
Beefy. You can tell just looking at it. So it's got a huge rim, bigger wheel, and of course that means overall size of the thing is big. So it's a lot taller.
Yeah, and then it's up to the company to, what are they going to do with the body? Right? Because
Exactly.
we're all used to different wheels. And I know before the show you asked me, how does it compare up to your Monster Pro? And I was like, I could definitely tell the difference. The Monster Pro is a little bit bigger, and you could feel that size when you start riding it. And this kind of feels like this, but kind of like how they said in that breakdown video, I think Bradley said that it gives him Abrams vibes. And it kind of does with that feeling,
I think
the
Abrams
size
is
of
the
it.
same size wheel as well.
Yeah, so you get that feeling, and you could start to feel the difference between them all. So it fits in that category, but it's a rather interesting wheel. More key features, though, moving
Yes.
on.
So in terms of going up to the body, I guess, the first thing that pops to me is like the batteries and the new battery system.
That's the first and foremost thing. I think that's the most important thing that a lot of people kind of touch on because they know it's, it's important, but they don't speak enough about it.
Yes, so they've finally went with like a potted battery system where each battery container is way more sealed and resistant to damage.
Sang did a great part about that in his video.
Yeah, so
and there's like gel in there in between.
I'm not exactly sure of the details for all of that, but I know that.
Yeah, just think if a cell wants to explode, I would feel more comfortable if it's got like gel and it's and it's not double layered cells.
I think the point
it's
of
only
this
single layered
is to
cells
prevent that exploding.
Yeah,
but yes.
But overall, that makes this entire body very slim.
Yeah, it's very slim, and the way they've laid out the batteries on both sides, they have similar to a V11 in the sense of like the shape of the batteries on each side. It's not like a perfect rectangle like a Gotway wheel.
Okay, yeah.
So they've literally used all the space they can to lay out the cells in these potted design, and then it's sealed in multiple layers, right? So that it's IP55, I believe, water resistant, dust resistant. So that's really important.
Very beneficial. And I think a lot of people, when they're looking at keeping these inside of their houses or something like that, or people who live in apartments and condos are like, okay, finally, maybe I can leave this at home and not have to worry, You know,
yes,
because they want
for
a lot
me
of
that's
that.
very important. So I'm a huge fan of the new battery system.
Yeah, and like you could be safer with some of those other wheels, but if you want performance, you end up going Bagote or Gotway a lot recently, and now maybe that Inmotion can push that boundary, and maybe we'll get into that. But more about some key features. Anything else on the inside other than like the Raptor, the control board? That is, I guess, the gauge wiring. Everything's a lot thicker. Like these are all the things, and I want to reiterate
Double Hall
this.
sensors in the motor.
Yeah, I want to reiterate this.
Redundancy.
It's like these are all things that we've asked for.
Yes.
We've asked for more Hall sensors. We've asked for thicker gauge wiring, so you know we don't have things heating up and stuff
And
like
I
that.
think the only thing that people ask for, that I think I've heard the community ask for, and that this wheel doesn't deliver on in the same line of what we're talking about, is still the battery size, the capacity. So we didn't mention it. Personally, for me, I may be an outlier. It doesn't matter that much to me. Like the range, I'm not riding super long distances, so I can make do with a large variety of unicycles, right? So
yeah, you're more excited in the 0 to 60 than at
yeah,
A to B.
give me some speed and acceleration, and I'm far more content than like, I want to go straight really like for a really long time. So it's a 3,000 watt hour battery. And I've definitely seen a lot of people go, oh, you know, the Master Pro is 4,800 and the Sherman is more at 3,600. So people are obviously a little disappointed maybe in the size of the battery and the range that will give you, because this thing can go 90 kilometers an hour.
Yeah, and that's going to eat.
That eats the battery super fast with the high voltage system, right? So
all the redundancies within the system. I mean, do they eat a lot? I didn't ride it extensively, so I don't know how much the battery will go down, but you can kind of think so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So it's got, you know, the new Raptor controller connected to those 3,000 watt hours, and it delivers a lot of power, and which gives you that speed and performance. But for how long? Yeah. Depends how you ride. Let's say that.
Yeah. So we can get into our opinions here in a second, but I think we should go over the last few key features. Those are like kind of the innards, the insides of things. How about the outside? I know we could probably insert a video of here. We tried to lift the wheel inside of the back of a car. What's a practical use for this thing and using those handles? Another one of the features you see on the outside is that orange roll cage looking thing on the outside, right? Like, is that to protect the wheel per se?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, right? You get that protection roll cage style, and you also have the utility side with it's a great handle.
I'm gonna fix this.
So it's a great handle, and the wheel weighs 115 pounds, which makes it a little challenging, as you can see.
And you're always
trying
looking
to
for
lift
a
it
place
into a
to like to hold on to it, to like lift it up from. So like we tried to lift it from the top handles, and you're like try it, and you're like almost it didn't really work.
Yeah, because it's so it's so tall that the top handles are already above where your like lift point would start, right?
Yeah, because it's a suspension
So at that point,
wheel.
you're lifting it above your head instead of up to your waist.
Yeah, but there are like those lower handles,
Exactly,
which actually do come in handy, and I've seen other people talk about those as well. So those are super helpful. I also saw people talking about the headlight was really good.
The headlight is pretty awesome. I only rode it at like sunset. I didn't ride it in pitch black, but it seems like it's as bright as a car headlight. It's my only gripe is kind of like all EUCs, gyro wheels. I don't know what to call these things anymore. I hate anyways. There's all this talk.
Just call it a wheel. Just say wheel.
It's like all the other wheels where when you're accelerating or even just going straight, they tend to point too far down, especially for the speed that this thing goes. I found myself that it doesn't point far enough out or like high enough up so that it can reach far enough. It's very wide, which is nice. The spread of the beam, but it doesn't reach very far. So when you're going fast, you have to look further ahead, right? The faster you're going, the further ahead on the road you're looking for obstacles and whatever. And the light basically reaches not far enough. So you're looking into the darkness at that point.
Yeah, it's hard though because the wheel's so close to the ground.
Yes.
I guess it's.
But it gets worse when you have what I was kind of alluding to was the power assist and power braking, whatever they call it.
When it dips.
Because those features intentionally dip the wheel a lot, and it takes quite a long time to return back, especially on braking. I mean, you tried it a few times braking it, and it would dip back, and I've seen some videos of other people doing it. Yeah, so when you're accelerating, especially at night, you have almost no light because the light goes really far down. Yeah. I would love to see a wheel that implements some sort of like, you know, the Audi, light. You know, the LED
the
LED matrix lighting, that like they'll see oncoming cars and they'll turn off the lights where those cars are.
What is the future?
Yeah, when
What is the future?
When you go around a corner, they'll like light up the corner for you before you get there.
That'd be next level. I can't imagine how much battery that would eat.
And they'd have to tilt as well, because when the wheel tilts, the light has to go up, and then
brother, that would be sweet though. That would be sweet. Where like you have a gyro wheel with a gyro headlight.
Exactly.
Like that.
Pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Next level.
So Inmotion, if you're listening.
Just saying, Bob. Just saying. Yeah, we appreciate Inmotion, and we've been reaching out to them personally in our community for this demo wheel to get some replacement parts, and Inmotion has been great to us. So we may
have crashed it once or twice.
Hey, we're doing great work over here. We're doing all the great work.
It's held up. It's held up. It's a great wheel.
But yeah, even holding up, we don't have a seat on top of this thing, but that trolley handle, it's actually a really nice trolley handle, and it's fully made of metal.
It is. I love that it's just like a push and it's spring loaded, right? So you just push a button and it pops up. Compared to I have the V12, and on that one, when you push the button, you still have to lift up the trolley.
Does that one actually spring up?
It does. So if you're not touching it and you just press the button, it'll shoot up.
I guess I'm just so like
you have to put it
be
down.
So quick and aggressive.
You have to put it down.
Oh.
And so what's funny is the V12 is the opposite of that. So the V12, when you press the button, you have to lift it up yourself, and then it locks into place. And then to put it down, if you press the button, it uses gravity and it just falls down.
Gravity.
Yeah. So it's a little different. It's the opposite. Whereas on the V13, it won't go down. You have to like physically push it down, and then it clicks in at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah.
But it pops up on its own, which I prefer, because if you want to quickly use it, you can just hit the button and then bam.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we talked about this during our kind of like our time with the community too, is that it's a great trolley handle, but it's also kind of inconvenient. It's like 3 centimeters too long.
Yes.
And it sticks
that
up
rear
out of the body just a little bit too much.
Makes it a little difficult to use the rear roll cage as a handle because it's close. If your hand's small enough, you might be able to make do.
But you're squeezing your hands in there.
But you're squeezing your hand in there awkwardly, and that also is that lift sensor.
Let's not talk about that. Yeah. There's been enough talk about it.
Yeah,
like, it's just not good.
It's there.
Yeah, it's there. So it is what it is. And there's that other mode.
I do like your strategy. Yeah. We'll just move on from that.
Yeah, just turn off the wheel. It's a big wheel. What are you doing keeping it on for?
I do like your strategy though with using the trolley handle and then using the seat. Because we have the
nearly
trolley
impossible
handle
to ride like that. You hit one bump, you're breaking your chest.
Yeah, that's true, and it is metal, so I wouldn't recommend you guys try this at home. But you can use the back as a seat if the trolley handle's up. It's flat then, right? So it's a bit more comfortable, but the trolley handle's in the way. Yeah, realistically,
100%. So that's most of the key features, except for the screen and the suspension as well. So quickly, the screen is the same as the V12. There's not anything really special about it. It'd be great to see a little difference, but there wasn't. It's good. It works.
It's great as a speedometer. Yeah, it's great if you want to quickly check your battery and like
it's also
some stats.
It's late. It's got some latency to it on the speed, so it is what it is. But it's the same as a V12. The other thing is, though, I know we took video of this, is I tried to get out the rubber spacers for the suspension.
Yes.
And I couldn't get it out. I don't know if my hands were cold or what I was doing.
It's a really small,
it's almost like
indent.
It's almost like a key slot.
Yeah, like put your key in or a nail and
so I pulled out my keys and I grabbed a little key and I popped it out. But yeah, it was pretty easy to pop out, pretty easy to pop back in, and then the controls are actually really small within there. There is a little orange key that comes with it that you can adjust
the rebound dampening.
Yeah, and then those just pop right back in. They don't ever want to pop out. Yeah, it's nice that it's rubber, but also that body in itself. And I know you mentioned this. That body isn't too forgiving on the insides of your legs.
At the top, there's no padding, so it's nice because it does angle inwards a bit as it goes to the top where those rubber things are. But the side of the wheel, because it's so tall, you're inherently gonna press into the side of your leg depending on how tall you are.
Unless you're
it may be your calf, it may be your knee, it may be your thigh if you're short.
Have you seen Turbo ride this?
Well, he's like 6'7", 7 feet tall or something.
Like mid calf on the top of it. He's like, yes, it's perfect. I'm like, I can imagine.
He's gonna race it apparently. So
yeah. But he's a big guy. Like he's got big feet and big legs. So like he needs the big boy wheels. So whenever something like this comes out, I look at them.
Yeah. So I'm like that unlucky average size. I don't know what the length of my legs are, but I'm. You know what I mean? I'm 5'10", and so for me, the top part of the wheel there goes right into the side of like my knee socket.
That bone.
The bone. It's not below in the calf, which is nice, or above in my thigh. It's like right into the knee.
You know what you need?
Pads? Yeah.
Shin guards.
Yeah, shin guards, exactly. Or like the Leots that wrap around, which would protect,
Yeah,
no,
or
100%.
G-forms.
If you're riding without any of that, though, it's quite... You kind of have to avoid the side of the wheel. Use your feet more.
It's on the top angle of the V13, though.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else on key features on the outside? Because I kind of want to get into some opinions.
No, that's it.
So this wheel, it's a lot of, it's everything that we've asked for, but it may come to our detriment, I think. Because this wheel is like, it's very well thought out. Like feel like I'm safe having it in my house. It can go fast speeds. It has a great tolerance. But it's also skinny. It's tall. It's a suspension wheel, so you're sitting up high as wheel. So that's, suspension, something we asked for. Keeping wheels from getting super, super thick is something we've asked for. Having a lot of capacity, so it's really heavy. And the V13 is great, and it feels good to ride for the most part. But then there's a couple times where it's like, okay, this thing is heavy. And it feels like at certain points, it just like, if I give up on my one leg just standing on it, it'll just want to topple over. And it's like, you really got to make sure that thing's not falling over. So I kind of think back to EVX's video when I watched it too. And he was talking about, is that truly a detriment that battery technology hasn't gotten to that point, that these things are just so ridiculously heavy now. And then it brings into the question, like, if you don't know how to properly set up the wheel and you don't know that there's like brake assist, like we didn't adjust a lot of the settings on the demo day every time. We just kind of swapped the wheel from one person to another. If you broke really hard without some of that stuff on, you got really bad wobbles on this wheel. And a lot of people were saying that. And it just comes down to the adjustments, right? So it's like, this is a great wheel, but you truly kind of need to know what you're doing with it to get the most out of it.
Yeah, I think those are all really good points. I agree with a lot of what you said. I think for me, if I were to give kind of my overall impressions or mini review of what it is, the first thing that I would start with is what to me I think is the biggest detriment, and you kind of touched on it. It's the weight. And for me, like what you mentioned about with the one-legged use, if you're at a stop or something, I noticed that multiple times while I was riding it. If I come to a red light or something where you physically can't go and you're like in between a bunch of cars, and you're trying to balance it on one leg, the wheel is just heavy. So to me, the weight, it's just straight up too heavy to the point where like
you make one misstep and it wants to fall.
One little mistake, and because of the shape of the tire, where the balance point of the wheel is, it quickly tips beyond a certain angle, and then it's heavy. So when it goes to that tipping point, you're grabbing the front roll cage,
and it's like, catch me, beep.
Yeah, exactly. What is the Inmotion thing? Be careful, please. Be careful.
Be careful. Be careful. How many times have we made that say that? Not too many, but a couple.
But yeah, so I think, like, to your point, the weight for me was the biggest issue, because there was times where I just found myself like coming to a red light. It's the first EUC where I frequently would just get off of it and just leave it in between my legs. Like I would just take both feet off and just hold the trolley handle because it's so tall as well. However, I'm 5'10", like I said. So for me, it's like I don't even have to bend over at all, and I can just reach the front trolley. If you're taller, it may be a bit more of an issue, but it's easier just to get off and just stand there and then hop back on when you got to go. But if you're riding it, so on that same note, when I'm riding it, it's also to me the first wheel that I feel like makes me want to treat it like a motorcycle. So it's a combination of things, right? Like everything we talked about, the weight, the safety, the speed that it can go comfortably, the good suspension, which makes it feel safe at those speeds. All of that makes it feel to me like you can finally ride on the road with cars and have no concern. Like you can, maybe this is a bad thing as well, but you can kind of pay less attention to the wheel and more attention to your surroundings.
Yeah, I feel like
it gets to that point of being like a vehicle.
I feel like for a long time we got used to Bagot or Gotway where we're like, is this thing going to cut out?
Exactly.
Is something going to happen?
Like you're always in the back of your head, is it beeping?
And now it's
am
more
I
like
going too fast?
Oh, is that a pothole there, or how am I going to avoid that, instead of like, can this take it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. And there's a couple times where I pushed the wheel to the edge and I was like, all right.
Yeah. And so every other wheel for me up until this point hasn't given me that feeling. So I think for me, it's a positive. I think like it's a huge step in a new direction for these PEVs. But it's a specific use case where you need to want that kind of vehicle where it's big, it's heavy, and it's more like its intention is for longer distance and at speed riding. It's not necessarily that fun 20-inch wheel that you can just toss around and, you know, go backwards on and pendulum easily. And you can try and do that, but you won't have as much fun.
Yeah. And that's like the one caveat I want to end, or like to put on the end of my opinion as well, is like, if you manage to find a way to harness this, which everyone will and everyone can, if and you want to, when you do figure that out, it could be a very, very, very good wheel.
Exactly.
But you got to figure it out, and you got to kind of know what you're doing, right? It's not a huge detriment, but it's just something. It's like, that's unfortunate with the V13. You kind of got to be experienced.
Yep. It's definitely
to get the most out of it.
It's a wheel that for the first time, I don't even want to take it in a bike lane ever. Right? Like smaller wheels, I'm like, okay, let me just chill in the bike lane for a bit and like ride at a slower speed if I'm, you know, like, but this wheel is just not fun.
I think I saw you go into the bike lane the other day on the V13 and you were just like, and then you got caught at the light and you were like, oh, god damn.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. I'm like, why did I do this? I should have just stayed in the lane.
I literally, it was raining. I was driving away in my car and you were like waiting at the light. I was like, yeah, that's Hansen. Yeah, he's not going through there.
That was a mistake.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think it's a great wheel. Maybe that was a bit, long-winded, but
no, it's good. I enjoy that opinion. No, and it really goes a long way. It's like, I think Hassang picked up on that in his video. He compared it a lot to motorcycles, and we haven't seen that a lot.
Yes.
Anyone comparing it to motorcycles, right? So that's exciting.
Yeah.
We did talk to people in the community too, and they had things to say. And I know you spoke with DJ, and we can definitely share clips from that.
Yeah, let's hop over to DJ's interview.
Woo!
So, what did you think?
Man, I wish this wheel was faster,
You look like you were ripping it quite a bit there.
Yeah. So I adjusted the pads without you knowing when I went earlier, so I can lean a bit further on the pedals because you need some weight.
Yeah, he actually leverage. Did that earlier. He moved them forward so that he could lean more. So that's what you did?
That's what I did again. And then I raised the back pedals because this is a bitch to slow down. So best method I found slowing this wheel down, just stand up and just slowly, don't break it. And like we've been thinking about this mentality for a while now. We can't stop that well. We don't actually have brakes.
Yes.
We have agility. We can dodge and dip and dive and
if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
all that good stuff.
So what's two things you like about it?
I like the safeties.
Safety's good,
but it's too much on that safety.
Okay.
And
something else.
The build quality of this, where the panels are the battery pack, and you can remove them quite easily. The tuning is wonderful right at the top. All the new wheels have that, but I gotta say this is garbage gaskets. These fall out.
We could throw in some B-roll here of how hard it is to get those out.
And I'm gonna bet you a couple months they'll be gone. Yeah. You're gonna have to get replacements or 3D printed parts or something.
Yeah. So that'd probably be the one like quirk that you don't like.
That's the other thing.
Perfect.
Like construction. Everything else on this is amazing. We've sadly dropped this and banged the roll cage and all that.
But they did their job, right?
But they're doing their job. They're wonderful. They're strong, even though it's like Chinesium. It's good. I would absolutely love these on most wheels, especially Bigodes.
Awesome.
Gutways, whatever you want to call them, right?
Bigodi.
Who?
Bigodi.
I don't know who that is.
Well, thanks, man. Enjoy it. Go take it for another rip, and
I would love
appreciate
to.
It.
Rolling, let's go.
So I think you probably saw DJ mention the little rubber gaskets there, and some of the things we talked about previously, and like wobbling at speed when braking, and
because he's an experienced rider.
He's a very experienced
rider. He knows
rider,
how to push it.
And he's ridden like much different wheels. Has the M10 all the way up to the EXN and bigger wheels. So
moving on from that, we also interviewed Shira, or Speedy Kit Kat, on Instagram, and she's more of a newer rider, but not so much newer now. She's getting a little more experienced, but she's also not very tall and not very heavy. So I was kind of interested to know how the V13 was for her.
As long as she doesn't Beyblade it, like that clip from the the Ride One event.
Which she hasn't
here, maybe. But let's hear what Shira has to say.
Yeah, for sure. Got Speedy Kit Kat Shira in the house. You've tried the V13 before. What were your first impressions? Like, give me like a couple things you like about it. Maybe one thing that was a little bit unexpected, if you have that.
Okay, so nothing really unexpected. It's a great wheel. It's good for going straight. For me personally, I can't really carve it and throw it back and forth too much because it's so heavy.
How tall are you?
I'm 5'2". So
yeah.
If you look,
so
I'm on my tiptoes. Like it's not very comfortable to sit on it. It's a wonderful wheel and I'd love to love it, but unfortunately it is just a bit too big.
A little weight.
Yes, it weighs as much as I do, so not good.
All right, well, go for a rip.
Okay. Mounting it is the hardest part, but once you're on, you're good.
Yeah, so I had to delve in, and I was like, okay, is this truly going to be a wheel for you? But like I said,
she can barely stand on it. I think she showed us like
tippy
being
toes.
on her tippy toes.
Tippy toes on either side. Yeah. But if you're, like I said, if you're an experienced rider and you know how to harness it, I don't think she should shy away from this wheel.
I agree.
If she can harness it.
Right at the end of the clip there, you see, the hardest part is mounting the wheel, and then she just takes off.
Just takes off. It's
like,
yeah, right. I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue.
I don't think you're going to struggle with this wheel once you've, figured out that.
Yeah, so I feel like this wheel could work for a lot of people, but it's just a matter of figuring it out, and it's a little more of an experienced wheel. Yes. The very famous B-Rye, which I talked about in the last episode, and I truly think we're going to have him on at some point. So
roll the clip.
Yeah. What are your opinions on the V13? I'm very interested to know what you're going to say because you're an experienced rider and somebody with a little more height and weight that is not so much comfortable on tiny wheels. So how do you feel on this one?
Yeah, so I've had multiple occasions to test this wheel. Every single time it's immensely powerful. Like you just lean into this and keeps giving. I don't think you can actually over torque this wheel. If you're accelerating, I don't think it's possible because there's so much headroom in there.
So it's a lot more impressive than other wheels, and you've ridden a lot of wheels. So.
Well, it's very comparable to the Master, but yeah, it's definitely up there.
So it is a performance wheel, you would say?
It's a performance wheel for sure, but the drawback to this wheel is the weight. It's extremely heavy, so the handling is impaired because of that. When I first rode this wheel, I found it very difficult to handle. And because I've ridden it multiple times now, I've probably ridden this wheel 5 or 6 times. It gets progressively easier as you get used to the weight, but I still don't think it'd be able to handle as well as the Master would. That braking, the braking that you do on normal EUC, where you just kind of lean back, you can't really do that on this wheel. You have to do an S brake or a curved brake in order to control that wobble.
I've seen a lot of people online, and even watching EVX's content, he put a great video out on the V13. He was kind of there was one point where you're braking and then you go into this curving brake, and I've seen that a few times with the V13. I'm like, is this a normal thing? So
that's a normal thing for suspension wheels because your center is higher up because of the suspension system, especially for the Master.
Yeah.
So people are getting more accustomed to braking like this now.
Man, damn. All right, well, appreciate it. Thanks for your opinion, man. And thanks for being part of the Toronto community.
B-Rye, I think, enjoyed this wheel a lot. He had it before us.
Yeah.
And he got a lot of riding in on it from, enough riding in.
Yeah.
So I think...
and he's a very experienced rider, and he's not necessarily short. He's not necessarily light. But
he made some good comparisons to the Master, which I think is his main wheel for speed and whatnot. So...
yeah, he's got a Master.
For all you Master riders, you may enjoy the V13.
Yeah, for anyone who just enjoys a somewhat bigger wheel, something with a little more power, a little more oomph, a little bit more to it. There is one more thing I do want to mention too, and we didn't really get an interview with him, but I did want to chat with him about it. And that was Alex. We call him Tall Boy. I went out for a ride with him, and the one thing he mentioned was the difference between the knobby and the street tire. He goes, it ships out with the knobby. He goes, I'd be very interested to know what this would be like with a street tire, because all the people we talk to, all the people that we can watch online doing, chatting
Everyone
about the
has
V13, they're all saying that this is pretty well a street wheel. You're not really going to be using this off-road.
Correct.
You may be doing some big sender jumps, but you're not doing technical smaller stuff. It's just really heavy. So why does it still ship with a knobby wheel? And he said, what would a good street tire be like?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think, you switched out your Monster Pro to a street tire pretty quickly as well, right?
Well, it was a street tire before, but it was literal paper.
Oh, okay.
Straight from Pagoda.
So
it's
I
paper.
guess that doesn't really. That's not.
I switched it to a tubeless rubber, which is a little bit more robust, but it is a street wheel. Yeah,
not a good example then. But what I was trying to kind of say is that these companies, if you're making a wheel that's designed entirely for the street, let's give us a street tire, or at least the option, right? I was talking to Liv about this.
Thank you.
And she had the same sentiment.
Live for UC.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's something I couldn't. It's
logical.
Logical, right? You don't buy a sport bike. I'm going to go back to motorcycles because it's what I know really well.
Yeah.
You don't go to the dealership and buy a sport bike that's going to ride on the street and have it come with knobby tires and them tell you, no, this is what you want on the street. What do you mean? These are great.
Yeah.
Which is literally what these UC companies are doing. They're
Yeah,
just like,
well,
this is a great tire. What do you mean?
Well, at the end of the day, you got to be put in their shoes too. Like they have to put a tire on it. They got to order 1 million of these tires. They have to decide on one. Whoever's helping them make these decisions is not thinking hard enough.
Yeah, one of the options we talked about was just not including the tire, maybe having the vendors.
Oh, what a nightmare, though.
It would be a nightmare for them, maybe or when you purchase it, you have the option. I guess.
Yes, so make a 50-50.
Yeah.
Right. If you think it's going to be more of the other, make 70-30.
Exactly.
But have the wheel be made through production with both an off-road and a street, or specifically go in one direction that makes a logical point.
Yes.
But give people an option.
It makes a massive difference. And to Alex's point in your little chat you had with him, I think it's just like a really good point that we didn't touch on at all yet in this episode. But I didn't really want to mention it because, like you said, no one else has also tried it. And none of the big reviewers have swapped out the tire. I know there is someone, I can't recall his name, but Daniel mentioned him to me, that he already swapped his V13 to a street tire, and he noticed a few changes. I don't want to get into that now, but I
think we're gonna have more opinions come out in the future.
We'll have
really
more to talk about. But I think like in terms of what we tested and what everyone that tried it said, it's a good point. Like we're riding on the street, give us a good street tire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all you can ask for. Yeah, so I think overall those are some pretty great opinions. It's like I said, this wheel is a lot of what we've asked for, but at the same time there comes some negative sides to that. Do you feel?
Yes, definitely. I don't really think they're necessarily negative. They're more so just they're very specific to what you want to do with the wheel.
I take back what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of wheels, like you talk about an M10 or a smaller wheel, it's going to have a lot of negatives or like things that maybe you don't like because it's not what you need a wheel to do.
Yeah, maybe I do phrase it that way because it's like this was the big one. This is the one we're all excited for. This is supposed to solve everything. Yes. This was,
There is no one wheel to rule them all. I'm sorry.
Yeah. We all thought it may have been possible.
Yes, we thought that it may have been. And I think this one does a great job at ruling in many areas, which we talked about.
Yes.
But, it's not perfect.
Yeah, and I think that suspension system also isn't perfect. It's
Agreed.
Great. It's just that Inmotion stuff. I think there's a lot of improvements to be made in that area. So it'd be cool to see them go maybe
From what I saw, they basically took the V11 suspension and doubled it. So that it can support a bit more weight. But I agree with you. There's improvements that could be made. We've seen some of it in some other wheels. So,
but yeah, as long as they've got the internals figured out more now, the battery and the
safety,
the control board, like all of that has just now been thought out. Let's move on to some other things too. But I know that maybe that's not their prerogative. I know there was some talk about maybe them making a smaller wheel, looking for some opinions on some smaller wheels as well. So that could be exciting to see as well.
I'm looking forward to 2023, any new wheels that come out. And I think the V13 is going to be, I'll just say, I think it's going to be popular among those who choose to buy one.
What do you mean when you say that?
I just think people will like it, I guess. If they choose to buy it.
So you're saying there won't be many haters of those who end up buying one.
Yes.
So if you end up buying it, you'll end up liking it in some way or another. Okay.
Right? Like if you haven't ridden it, you don't know what it's like and you decide to jump ship and grab one.
Like, what's a good example of a wheel that people jump ship on a lot? Well, other than, I guess, maybe obvious issues do count. But there's definitely a few wheels out there.
There's a few new wheels, right? The Sherman S comes to mind, and I'm just thinking in terms of like the new wheels. If someone were to buy this wheel, there's not many of them out there yet. I think overall people will be pleased with what this wheel can do. I think we did a good job at kind of illustrating our feelings on it and what things we like and dislike. And I think everyone should consider those. So if you know, like, hey, I don't ride on the street a lot, I want to ride on just like bike trails.
We're saying good luck.
Yeah. It may not be the wheel for you. So
can try.
Know what you want to use your wheel for, and then make a decision based on that.
Yeah, and on that note too, I think there's still more to come out of this V13 because they could always give us improvements. And I know someone in our community mode. Here I am, spilling my words. Somebody in our community was talking to Inmotion about actually opening up fancy mode on the V13, which isn't a thing yet, and that would unleash this thing over 100 kilometers an hour or to 100 kimeters an hour with the right rider under the right conditions. But I think there maybe has, I would say, not some convincing, but just some validation that like, hey, are you the right people? Can we trust you? Like, can I sit down? Let's have a video chat first, maybe some conference, and then if they want to be the test dummies and they're asking for it, then let them do it. But let the company be in on that, and like, come on, company, like Inmotion, if you want to sit down and have like an open video chat with them just to verify that it's the right decision to make and they can help you reach that goal, then do it, right? So I think a lot of the companies now are listening to us a lot more. They're opening up to us a lot more. They're asking for our opinion. So this is a perfect time for us to plead back. Like, let's have a video open chat about fancy mode if you'd like. So
yeah,
that's the thing.
That's great. Yeah. So I guess I just wanted to say thanks again to Ride One.
For
giving us this wheel, and
this is not possible without them.
Yeah, if you're looking for a new e-scooter, e-unicycle, e-bike,
one wheel,
you want to rent, you got a one wheel, check out Ride1.ca.
on Lakeshore, Toronto, in that area. Yeah, they're down there in Queens Quay. Great guys and gals that work down there, and they do a great job. And they've hosted the UC race and the demo, done a great job with that, always having food and DJs. And they listen. And we said, hey, maybe we want a new wheel that we could demo and talk about. And they said, hey, we got a new wheel. Do you want to do that thing you said? So shouts out to Ride One. Anything else to add about the V13? I think it's an exciting wheel. Let's let those comments down below tell us.
We'll see you guys on the next episode.
Absolutely. Of PEV Lane.
Peace.